April 30th, 2019. That was the day I first played one of my favorite video games of all time, Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix. I remember as I was making my way through KH2FM, every day in my last few months of middle school, I would passionately tell one of my friends during first period about what new thing I discovered in KH2, what cool thing I saw Sora did, or simply talk about how interesting I thought the story was. My friend had never touched a KH game in their life, but here I was at 13 trying to convince them to ask for the game as a gift for their birthday or miraculously obtain the game through some other method. The chokehold this game had on my free time was unreal. All I could think about at school was how long until dismissal so I could go home and continue my adventure with Sora and the gang. My mom used to always force me to go to my grandma's house out in the sticks during the summer, so I'd often take a select few games with me to make sure whatever I had downloaded to my console would keep my attention for the 2 months I spent there. Usually I'd run out of things to do and start dying of boredom, but this summer I had Kingdom Hearts, and I hadn't beaten KH2 yet, so that's what I spent the first month of my time down there playing, and that experience was unforgettable. Kingdom Hearts 2 is a game that I never stopped playing since my first playthrough. I booted up all the time to dick around, refight the amazing super bosses, start challenge runs on the hardest difficulty, you name it. This entry means a lot to me. KH1 on my first playthrough left a wonderful impression on me, Retrain cranked up the drama and made me care even deeper for these characters, but Kingdom Hearts 2 was when I knew for sure that I was now a die-hard Kingdom Hearts fan. So, with all that being said, grab some snacks, sit back, get comfortable, as I go over why Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix is one of my favorite video games of all time. Starting of course with the story. In a sense, the game picks up right where Retrain of Memories left off, but instead of immediately following up on the fate of Sora, you're thrown into the shoes of the boy from Retrain's credits, whose name turns out to be Roxas, and he has 3 other friends named Hayner, Pence, and Alette. The group are just a bunch of kids trying to enjoy the time they have left of summer vacation, but items around their hometown wind up missing, and one member of a rival friend group named Cypher is speculated to be going around saying they're the culprits. But here's the thing, somehow, someway, their photo gets stolen. But that's not the weird part. The culprit somehow managed to steal the word photo, which obviously rings everyone as weird, so they spend time out in Twilight Town to investigate the matter further so they can get to the bottom of this and clear their own names, which leads to the group bumping heads with Cypher, and you're thrown into the first combat tutorial in the game using struggle sticks. Right off the bat, the basic 1, 2, 3 ground and air swings feel way better than they did in KH1, and it feels great to knock the shit out of Cypher here. Soon the real thief shows up though, stealing Pence's camera, and you follow them to this castle where Roxas gains access to the Keyblade for the first time, and you make quick work of the mysterious monster. They get their photos back and notice that every stolen photo was of Roxas, and not knowing what to make of that, they just laugh it off. Unbeknownst to them though, Roxas recently has been having dreams living the adventure Sora had in KH1, and the more this happens, the more weird shit occurs when he's awake. Like, more appearances of these creatures and grown men in black cloaks watching him. At first he brushes it all off and tries to live his normal life, doing odd jobs to save up money for the beach and taking part in the yearly struggle tournament, but it kinda gets hard to ignore when time around you suddenly freezes and a girl you never met starts talking to you and the same monsters from before start attacking again. Roxas at this point has his dive to the heart, and you get to once again pick between the sword, shield, and mage staff, as well as choose one to sacrifice. I chose the shield and gave up the sword, which was very beneficial considering the difficulty I chose, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The dive to the heart this time around has you fighting more of these white gelatinous monsters instead of heartless, and the huge one straight up tips the fucking station over, but one well-placed strike rate from Roxas gives him the edge over it, and after he gets properly introduced to Naminé, who gets reprimanded by the same cloak guy Roxas saw earlier that day. The weird dreams and occurrences continue until Roxas runs into Axel of all people, who talks as if he and Roxas have prior history, but Roxas has no idea what this guy is on about, but the two fight considering Axel is attempting to kidnap him, but in the middle of the scuffle Diz shows up, trying to get Roxas to not trust Axel, which frustrates our poor boy. He just wants to beat up Final Fantasy characters and go to the beach before school starts, not deal with this bullshit. And it's not like he can talk to his friends about all this because they think he's talking crazy as they see none of what's transpiring. More weird dreams and incidents continue to happen to Roxas until eventually he returns to the old castle and sees Naminé in the window and begins to visualize the conversation between the two of them, and she explains to him that Sora a year ago had his memories tampered with by her and she's putting him back together, but they need Roxas in order to complete that task. Adding that the boy was never supposed to exist in the first place. Still confused and a little hurt by what she said, Roxas snaps back to reality but ends up physically going inside the castle the next day since things are still going to shit inside Twilight Town due to the strange creatures overrunning the place and time randomly freezing. He ends up having a run-in with Diz and the cloaked figure again, with Diz displaying a noticeable amount of prejudice towards Roxas for being something called a nobody. All of this culminates in Roxas fighting Axel again, but this time while dual-wielding Keyblades, which looks sick as fuck, and then finding the room Sora is currently sleeping in within the castle, and it becomes clear that he needs to cease existing in his current form and become a part of Sora in order for him to wake up again. This Roxas prologue is like 2.5 hours long. You really get a feel for what his day-to-day life was like before he had to sacrifice his being for Sora to wake up. When the group wants to go to the beach, you all take up summer jobs to fund the trip, as kids do. The group talks about school and the summer project they were supposed to do, and you can tell Roxas has been living in this simulation for what feels to him like his whole life. For Roxas, his whole world is crumbling down before him, and he's having things forced upon him due to circumstances beyond his control. Therefore, it's pretty hard watching him realize how helpless he is to stop what's going on around him, and realizing he has no choice but to join with Sora so he can finally wake up, despite him wanting to just be his own person. But Sora does indeed rise from his slumber due to Roxas' sacrifice and reunites with Donald and Goofy. Been in there for a whole year, so our boy has gotten taller and outgrown his clothes, which is a neat little detail. The group reflects on what's happened up until now accurately, so Nomura did her job well in restoring their memories, but just as she said, they don't know anything about what happened in Castle Oblivion, but let's be real, maybe that's for the best considering all the manipulation and emotional scarring the orc put Sora through, but regardless, everyone walks out into Twilight Town to see where they are, which leads them to encountering Hairprince and Olette, who tells them a mysterious guy in a hood with big ears was looking for them, which they quickly put together as the king and set off to meet with them. They arrive at the station where he was allegedly last seen, however upon arrival the trio get into it with the strange monsters from earlier, but are quickly saved by the king, who tells them to board the train which takes them to this tower where you're introduced to another antagonist, Pete. He's a big goofball, but an entertaining goofball, and one working under Maleficent, but he doesn't know that we put her out of commission in the first game, so the trio kick his ass and climb the tower, where they find its tenant, Master Yen Sid. Cool anagram, guys. Yen Sid here explains what's going on in the worlds and what the current goal of Sora, Donald, and Goofy is. He tells them that the Heartless are still around, but in fewer numbers thanks to their efforts in their last adventure, but the new threat they face are the Nobodies, the shells left behind when people with strong hearts and wills become a Heartless. The main issue with this is that the organization is still running around and they're comprised of really powerful Nobodies whose motives we don't know yet, which is where the trio comes in. Their job is to find out more about the organization and what they're planning and put a stop to them. While they're doing that, Donald and Goofy are keeping an eye out for King Mickey, and Sora is looking for Riku. Sora gets new clothes, granting him new abilities, and the trio set off on their gummy ship looking for clues on Organization 13, which boils down to hopping from Disney World to Disney World looking around for things that ring suspicious, while helping solve whatever problem the locals in their respective worlds are going through, which usually involves some sort of run-in with either the organizations themselves, who continue with their weird riddle-spouting behavior I love so much, or in some cases Maleficent, who gets revived as Sora leaves the tower and links up with Pete to cause trouble. The world selection in this entry is interesting. We got a mix of new and returning worlds, with returning worlds usually having a whole new area to explore, like in Hollow Bastion's case, where the Traverse Town gang took it upon themselves to turn parts of the world into a livable town area for residents, and putting in place security measures to keep out threats. It really feels like the world is alive and progressing forward with time, which is really cool to see. There's a really cool world called Timeless River that makes Sora in the game take on designs reminiscent of the late 1920s Steamboat Willie cartoon, and it's one of my favorite worlds in the game. They even made the audio sound like it's coming out of an old TV, and most of the enemies have extra squash and stretch put into their animations. But unfortunately it's home to this son of a bitch, the Mad Bumper, a seemingly normal enemy until the motherfucker slaps on super armor and speeds around the map and just won't fucking stop! Thankfully, well-timed thunder magic does help with these guys, but even still, they can be tricky to defeat. The reason you're here in the first place is that Maleficent makes an attempt to take over Disney Castle, but can't due to this huge orb called the Cornerstone of Light. Fortunately for them, but unfortunately for us, another door has appeared that can enter Timeless River, and Maleficent sends Pete in to steal the Cornerstone in the past, which would weaken the castle's defenses in the present, allowing her to take over. Sora's goal here is to find and lock that door while making sure future Pete doesn't mess with the Cornerstone, and there's so many charming interactions between him and Pete of the past, and of course, Steamboat Willie himself. The music in Timeless River, man, such a classic. I hate that I neglected to talk about the music in my KH1 video because Kingdom Hearts has some stellar music. From the menu themes to the battle music, it's all great, and KH2 is no different. In fact, this game has better music than the first game. Besides Timeless River, the overall theme in Mulan World is great, so is the music in Beast Castle, which you actually get to visit this time, which is pretty cool. The boss themes are also great, with the 13th Struggle, the Organization's battle theme, being one of my favorite tracks. And another world I really fuck with, design-wise, is the Lion King world. It's actually one of the few Disney movies I have seen, so I have a lot more of a connection with this one as opposed to the others. Sora gets turned into a little lion, he's adorable, and Goofy gets transformed into a turtle and Donald a bird, which is also pretty neat. But, I say I fuck with this world design-wise because gameplay-wise, this world kinda has a similar problem to Atlantica in the first game where since Sora is transformed, he doesn't have all of his mobility he would if he was human. However, it's not as bad here. Lion Sora is definitely more nimble than Dolphin Sora. The problem comes in when the game decides to put some of the most annoying enemies known to man in this world, which makes the disadvantages of Sora's transformation more apparent. Granted, I think you only feel the lack of Sora's growth abilities and lack of a block on harder difficulties. You got your beginner, standard, and proud like usual, but KH2 introduces a new critical mode, which was what I played on, and it's a doozy. It cuts your health in half, while you still take proud mode damage, which leads to situations like this. It can be a little frustrating, but the reason I chose to play on critical mode and by extension proud in the original game is because Kingdom Hearts kinda has an issue on lower difficulties where it can be easy to mash the attack button and clear enemy encounters and you're not really pushed much to use the other options available to you at their full capacity. Proud mode alleviates this a little bit, but critical mode makes studying enemy patterns and learning when to counterattack more important and makes whipping out the right magic spell in crucial moments a lot more satisfying. I'll dive more into the combat mechanics a little later, but for right now, it's time for war.
Sora! Donald! Goofy!
Relax. Those three aren't going down that easily. The Keyblade's chosen one. He's a lucky kid.
See you soon.
So midway through the game, you come back to Alabastion after scouting around the various Dizzy Worlds for information, and you find out the king is here. Hooray! Still no sign of Riku though. However, Leon and the game managed to find Ansem's computer, so Sora thinks to ask it where Riku is. Unaware that's not how computers work, but I digress. Side note, Sora also tried to search where Kairi is as well, due to him being informed that she was kidnapped by an org member, that member being Axel, but Sora doesn't know that tidbit. But Sora tampering with the computer in a reckless manner activates its security function, and one further fuck up from Donald gets them all sent to Space Paranoids, where they help Tron recover access to the terminal from the MCP, who's this evil program who exists here that's blocking the data from being fully accessible from the terminal in the real world. Unfortunately, once they do get access to it, the data is mostly corrupted, so they don't get much info out of it. I love the face Sora gives Leon when he asks him to copy the data from the terminal down, like even he's confused why he asked him of all people. But the one thing they did manage to get out of the computer was a picture of this guy, who Mickey recognizes as Ansem the Wise, to the confusion and concern of Sora, Donald, and Goofy. But Mickey fills them in, explaining that the Ansem we defeated in the first game was not the real Ansem, just a guy who was Ansem the Wise's apprentice, who turned himself into a Heartless, and then went around using the real Ansem's identity. Before any of them can make sense of that revelation, suddenly Hollow Bastion comes under siege by an army of Heartless and everyone bands together to defeat all of them. As a Final Fantasy fan, it gets me hyped seeing these characters from different universes fight together and have cheeky banner.
Think you can handle this many?
Well, might be tough if one more shows up.
Then that'll have to be the one I take care of.
What? You're fighting too?
This cut of gameplay is just so good. You finish off another member of the organization while Goofy has the most E for everyone death scene, and Sora, Donald, and Mickey lash out in anger over it, tearing through hordes of Heartless while fighting back to back with Yuffie, Tifa, Leon, and Cloud. It's so dope. Surprise, surprise, Goofy is actually okay, but before you get a moment to reprieve, the leader of Organization 13 shows up with his fire-ass design, and Mickey realizes his true identity, that being Ansem the Wise's apprentice is Nobody, who originally was a man named Xehanort, but in his present form goes by the name Xemnas, and he doesn't give Sora, Donald, or Goofy a moment to breathe and sicks a horde of Heartless onto the group. Everyone splits off to handle their own section of the Heartless army, but Sora single-handedly takes down 1,000 of them, all done in-game, not through cutscenes, and when I first played this as a kid, my jaw hit the floor. After playing the first game, Enchanted Memories, I came to understand in-universe the Heartless were very dangerous in smaller groups, but here I am, in the sequel, playing as Sora, fighting 1,000 of them at the same time, on my own, snatching them out the air and using their own attacks against them. This was indeed peak gaming. And right after, you just defeated the most Heartless that this series has ever asked you to in one battle, you get the reveal that this was all a part of the organization's plan, as they are collecting the captured hearts released from every Heartless Sora defeat so they can use them to construct an artificial Kingdom Heart, which power they will use to become real people again. Which meant that every single time that Sora defeated a Heartless, not just in the last battle, but every single time up until this point, you were indirectly helping the organization with their plans. Things are looking dire for the trio until Maleficent steps in and helps them out, giving Sora a chance to escape. Sora at this point doesn't want to use the Keyblade to assist in the Org's plan, but people still need help in the Disney World since the Heartless are still hurting people, so he kinda has no choice. However, the group finds a faint signal that rings strange to Chip and Dale, and they continue to look into it until it leads them back to Twilight Town, which upon arrival they meet with the Twilight Town gang, and Pence suspects that there are actually 2 Twilight Towns, one real and one fake, due to the fact that some items the two groups have there should only be one of, like the money pouch the king gave to Sora or the ore from the struggle trophy. Tried and true, they all go to the mansion to investigate, and it turns out they were right. And within this data, Twilight Town was an entry to the organization's stronghold that the group manages to get to thanks to assistance from Axel, who sacrificed himself to get the Horde of Nobodies off of them. We're now in one of the coolest looking KH original locations the world that never was, a city with the organization made fake Kingdom Hearts looming in the background that illuminates the neon city that's teeming in darkness. Almost immediately upon stepping in here, Sora gets whisked away and attacked by a hooded orc figure, who took me way longer to beat than it should have, but the player should know that this is Roxas, but to Sora, who's never met this person, the whole fight just comes off as an odd occurrence before the finale. Though it's filthy work that Sora can take his Keyblades in this fight and use them against them. That was fire. In fact, the choreography here is great, just like in the last game, and while Keyblade swings usually have a more magical or whimsical sound design when hitting people and objects with it, let's not forget the power that each swing really has. I mean, do you hear these noises? Afterwards, Sora gets a glimpse of his hooded assailant, but doesn't have time to dwell on the fact that he just got assaulted in the organization's parking lot, so the group enters their stronghold where Kairi is being held hostage. Before his passing, Axel relayed this information to Sora, giving him extra drive to hurry up and save Kairi, who soon after Sora arrives, goes on the run thanks to assistance from Naminé. The two make pretty good headway too, that is until they run into Saïx. But this is when Naminé calls to Riku for help, who promptly corners Saïx, but he manages to escape, and before Riku can try and pursue him, Kairi pulls him to the side and pulls on his hood, revealing their current form, which looks exactly like Ansem. Something he tried desperately to keep hidden from his friends the entire game. The two of them eventually cross paths with Sora and give him some assistance, and while this occurs, Mickey meets up with Diz, who's revealed to be the aforementioned Ansem the Wise, which was a super cool twist I didn't expect while playing this for the first time all those years ago. He's carrying with him a machine that will destroy the Kingdom Hearts the organization made, which should put a dent in their plan, giving the heroes enough time to cut their leader's Xemnas down. This is also where it's revealed why Riku looks the way he does now. That being because after Riku, Mickey, and Diz teamed up at the end of Rechain, around the time Sora was meant to wake up from his slumber, Diz told Riku that capturing Roxas and bringing him to them would help Sora wake up, but Roxas was not going to go quietly, so the two duked it out and Roxas actually came out on top. But Riku wasn't finished yet. He tapped further into the power of darkness so he could secure a win against Roxas, but doing so changed his appearance to like Ansem, who was still lingering in his heart around this time. Honestly, a really cool scene, not just because of the Riku vs Roxas fight, but also because it's a moment for Riku to show his resolve and dedication helping his friend, that he was willing to immerse himself yet again in darkness despite knowing what happened the last time he did so. But this time around using it as a tool that can be used for good, building off his arc from the last game. What's interesting though is that Ansem the Wise actually feels bad that Riku had to go through all this for his plan to get revenge on the organization. Watching the way events unfolded has given the old man some introspection and made him realize that the way he went about things was in a manner that was destructive to people around him, but he intends to make things right. Understandable pipeline of thought, because you know, manipulating children time and time again and placing them in dangerous situations over and over again is, you know, not the best thing to do. Meanwhile, Sora is having a heated battle with Xigbar, which ends in his victory, and alas, Sora and Kairi are together again. Watching these two reconnect after being apart for so long is super heartwarming. I love how after Kairi tells Sora that because he and Riku didn't come home for a while, she came looking for them initially. She even wrote them a letter in a bottle hoping it reached them in the beginning of the game, and Sora, realizing how much time has passed, just tries to apologize, but Kairi just gives him a hug because all she cares about is the fact that they're together again. It's so good. And the gut punches don't stop there, because Sora doesn't recognize Riku initially, but through Kairi and looking deeper into his heart, I guess, he realizes this is him, and he just breaks down crying because of how hard he searched for him. And I love everything about this scene, from the massive payoff of Sora finally finding Riku after 2 games of searching, the character writing present here, to the music choice. My god, the music choice. Kingdom Hearts has themes that just elevate any emotional scene they're used in, and Friends in My Heart is no exception. It's one of KH's staple tracks that make you feel the weight of what's happening on screen when used effectively. And now that all of our heroes are together, they make one last push to confront Xemnas, taking out a few more org members while they're at it. But while Sora handles these hoodlums, one through line that has had Sora confused since the start of the game is why each of them keep referring to him as Roxas, and even going as far to call him a traitor to the organization. Oftentimes when this happens, Sora just gives them a confused look and says some variation of, "I'm not Roxas," or "Who's that?" But it's pretty obvious throughout the whole game that Roxas is Sora's nobody, his other half, if you will. There's so many scenes of Sora experiencing Roxas' emotions towards things that Sora personally has no connection to, like when Sora initially leaves Twilight Town for the first time and says goodbye to Hainer, Pence, and Olette, and he sheds a tear without knowing why, unaware that it's Roxas inside him weeping because he's leaving his best friends. Once you put Saïx to the sword, or key, well at this point it might as well be a sword, Riku actually tells Sora this information, and he quickly puts together that Roxas must have been born due to that unlocking his heart stunt he pulled in KH1, which turned him into a Heartless. This also implies that Naminé was born from the same stunt, as her heart was also inside Sora's when he did this, and while Kairi did get her heart back, Naminé was still born in the process, which is an interesting twist of fate. Sora doesn't really do much with this information though, besides expressing interest to meet him at some point despite knowing Roxas' heart is inside him. So the team presses on through the castle, and eventually they convene with Ansem and Mickey, who make an attempt to destroy the organization's Kingdom Hearts, which they're successful at, but unfortunately the machine overloaded in the process, which seemingly takes Ansem the Wise out in a sizable explosion. But in his final moments, even if he's unsure if Roxas will ever hear these words, he apologizes for the way he treated him, which didn't go on deaf ears, and Sora was there to receive them. Said explosion causes Riku to regain his normal form due to the massive amount of light that was released from not only the machine, but the fake Kingdom Hearts blowing up, which cleansed Ansem's hold over Riku's heart. And man, I love this design for Riku so much, he has that shit on. But now it's time to take on Xemnas himself with some assistance from Pete and Maleficent, which leads to an explosive confrontation with skyscrapers being cut 6 ways a Sunday, flippy mid-air maneuvers with even more skyscrapers splitting, which culminates in Xemnas seemingly yielding and everyone deciding to go home. Sora and Kairi even being able to have a heartfelt conversation with Roxas and Naminé, who finally meet again as Naminé promised to Sora and Rechain, and as she promised to Roxas at the beginning of the game. The two will be forever together as long as Sora and Kairi are with each other, and they both return to them. But Xemnas still isn't finished yet, and he attacks Sora and Riku after everyone else had already left, leaving the duo to fend for themselves in an explosive finale. That starts with an admittedly gimmicky first phase, but the second is a no-holds-barred 2v1 against Xemnas with more skyscraper shenanigans, this time launching them like fucking projectiles to break Xemnas' shield, only for Riku, who's riding on top of the damn things, to cut the recoiled building into several pieces for further damage. It's so fucking cool. Then the last phase is just 2 powerful Keyblade wielders versus a man who desperately wants to exist, and will achieve that goal with lightsabers. Star Wars fans, eat your heart out. After one last combo, Sora and Riku land the finishing shot, and with both of them fatigued and looking for a way out, they end up wandering into the realm of darkness, where the two share a heart-to-heart on the beach, thinking they're probably going to be trapped there forever, but expressing to each other just how much they appreciate their friendship. That's when suddenly the letter Kairi wrote to them finally finds them, which ends up spawning the door to light, which gives the two a way out of the realm of darkness, and they blast back into the realm of light's atmosphere, right into Destiny Island's ocean, where Kairi, Mickey, Donald, and Goofy are waiting for them. At last, the trio are back home, and Sora returns the good luck charm Kairi gave him in the first game, ending Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix. I love this game's story. Is it corny in places? Absolutely. Are there areas where things should have been explained better? Oh, for sure. But for every moment where something could have been elaborated on a little better, or even the voice acting in scenes could have used 1 or 2 more takes, There's 5 more moments where the feeling the writers wanted to convey just hits, and it hits hard. I love everyone's character here and how they continue their journey since the last game, and the finale always leaves me feeling satisfied when I watch the credits roll. It's simply entertaining watching how the events unfold, even if I already know what's gonna happen, and that's the mark of a good game for me. Hell, even on first playthrough, this game's story had me on the edge of my seat, and that's with me not even being a Disney fan. But the way Kingdom Hearts gets me, someone with barely any prior connection to most of the Disney cast here, to care about them and their goals within the KH universe, and how their relationship with Sora progresses or how they help out, is something special I gotta commend them for. But watching Roxas' sacrifice, how he reacts within Sora to leaving his friends, Axel's internal struggle of wanting his friend back who doesn't remember him, and the lengths he went to just to see him again, not to mention just how much more entertaining the organization are in this game as antagonists. The Final Fantasy characters, Sora's reunion with his friends, it just works for me. And I love every bit of the insanity. And all of this is propped up by some of the best gameplay I've experienced in an action RPG. Hell, even people I know who aren't big on the story love this game for its content alone, and I love both. Kingdom Hearts 2 has some of the most buttery smooth combat mechanics I've touched. Is it perfect? Hell no, but I'll get into that. Sora's overall mobility has shot way up since his last adventure. Maybe it was all that sleep that he got, but my boy cuts up Heartless and nobody's alike with a great deal of finesse here. In Kingdom Hearts 1, your air combos were usually your best option. It was fast and you can act out of it quickly, and your ground combos weren't too bad either. You could extend how many hits your air and ground combos were, but honestly, the 3 hits were fine. Here though? Oh my god, Sora's combo game has greatly expanded. He can now knock enemies into the air from a ground combo, which now links these two tools together, meaning you have a lot more incentive to use your ground combos and not just rely on your aerial attacks. Now, don't get me wrong, your aerials are still your best moves, but even still, now it's better to start your combos on the ground and transition into an aerial combo to squeeze out more damage. The list of finishers has also been increased. There's so many moves that make Sora, who already started out feeling superior than the first game, feel even better to use. But that's the first problem. The only info you get that tells you what these moves do are the text blurb at the bottom, but to me they aren't the most helpful marker to tell me what the move will do or look like in a combo. It's only until you turn it on and see the animation that you will know if you want it or not. Would have been super helpful if they had a screen similar to what DMC has, where you can see what specifically has changed when you turn on the individual abilities. I can't speak for everyone, but usually in my initial playthroughs of KH2 I turned on every ability, which in endgame had Sora doing a lot of flashy and flippy maneuvers that was indeed powerful, but then I'll have some mediocre abilities akin to dodge slash that didn't serve me any purpose besides making my combos too long, which can trigger a boss's revenge value, which essentially is just the point in which your combo where the boss breaks out and counterattacks automatically, or just whiffing in dodge slash's case, or it's just a waste of AP, which is limited as always. Get the right moves on and Sora's combo game can come with finishers that pack up punch, such as Explosion here, which is a finisher that has Sora release these balls of light that shred through enemy HP. Or you can get others like Aerial Slash and Magnum Burst, which are powerful area finishers that are helpful to have. A clean mincing of your foes in midair, and the only application of Magnum magic I will ever use in this game. Most of the useful finishers push the enemy a good deal away, giving you a pocket of time to think of your next move, whether it be continuing the offensive or backing off and playing it safe. Like in the last game, there are some abilities that modify things outside of Keyblade swings, but now they're all marked as so on the list, which makes finding specific ones easier. Good example being Finishing Plus, which allows you to do one extra finisher at the end of your combo. It's grouped conveniently under the support tab, so it's not a hassle modifying it. And that's already good, but it gets even better. The growth abilities from the first game are also back, but now instead of finding them in a chest, they're tied to a new battle mechanic, Drive Forms. I love these so much. Ever since I first saw the activation animation where Sora surrounds himself in a ball of light then shatters like glass, revealing his ascension to a new Keyblade fighting style. You unlock the first one, Valor Form, after Sora gets his new clothes, and in it Sora gets to dual wield Keyblades of your choosing and it looks awesome. Though not my favorite to use in combat. Again, visually the sight of Sora comboing the shit out of his enemies and doing this cool finisher is satisfying and the damage it deals isn't half bad, but each drive form has its ups and downsides, and in Valor Form's case, it's a very combat focused drive form. You can't block or cast magic, you have to skillfully maneuver Sora out of danger, but at the press of the square button, Sora will home in on an enemy lunging at them with Keyblade swings that can start a combo, and he's also equipped with High Jump, which gives you an easier time dodging attacks. How are growth abilities tied to these forms, you ask? Oh, you didn't? Well, too bad. That aforementioned High Jump is the growth ability for Sora to learn if you level Valor Form up to level 3, in which then the skill will become an equipable growth ability that you can use at any time in Sora's base form. And as you level the Drive Form further, the growth ability gets stronger as well, allowing you to jump higher than you could at level 1. This applies to every Drive Form, because all of them have a unique ability for Sora to learn. There's Wisdom form, which focuses on Sora's magical prowess, which allows him to shoot out magic-based projectiles as well as strengthening all his magic, but its growth ability lets you do this quick dash that has invincibility frames for a sizable amount of its animation, making it a great evasive tool for removing yourself from tricky situations. Lemon form allows you to sacrifice the MP in your new mana bar to perform various abilities Sora had in KH1 like Strike Raid, Sonic Blade, and Ars Arcanum, as well as Ragnarok, all of which have useful applications from clearing out rooms of enemies to plain having a large glowing stick you can bash a boss's skull in with.
This is it!
But use enough finish commands with Sonic Blade and you can earn its dodge roll ability, which I'm not sure how some people will feel about unlocking dodge roll as a growth ability. For a good part of the game you don't have access to it. In fact, the original PS2 release was dodge roll list because Limit Form was a dry form added to the final mix release, but I guess that goes to show just how evasive Sora can be without it, but god is it nice to have. The invincibility you get with it at a moment's notice will always be welcome, and it makes fighting bosses a lot more fun. Afterwards, you get Master Form, which I'm not too sure what this form is good at specifically. It has great magic, but so does Wisdom. Keyblade swings aren't as aggressive as Valor, but it still does decent damage. But its growth ability, the double jump, one of the most useful maneuvers in this game, but you don't need Master Form to do it once you level it up enough. You can double jump in any direction on a dime, and combine this with the last drive's growth ability, Final Form's Glide, and you get movement that's out of this world for an action RPG. Final form you get after defeating Roxas in the world that never was and taking the Keyblade you earn from him and tapping into dry forms in a fight until you get it. It's a bit random, you can get it on your 3rd time or 30th. All depends on how the game feels, but when you do, good lord it shreds through enemies like it's nothing. Turns each of Sora's normal maneuvers into attacks or deflection tools due to him swinging his Keyblades around with fucking telekinesis, and bumps to your magic abilities greater than even Wisdom form offers. But it costs the most of the drive gauge to use, consuming 5 bars of the Dreamsicle colored meter. Yeah, these forms ain't free. They made it to where each form takes a different amount of meter to use, Valor and Wisdom costing 3 and Limited Master costing 4. Leveling them up ain't as simple as using them either, they all have different XP requirements. Valor gains experience points for every hit of the Keyblades, Wisdom you level up with every Heartless you defeat, Limit as mentioned earlier is for every finish command performed, making it the most tedious to level even when doing the mushroom method, but I digress. Master is for every drive orb you collect, which are orbs that would usually refill the drive gauge, but in Master they serve as experience. There's an ability called Drive Converter you get later on that makes most, if not all, money drops turn into drive orbs instead, and if you know where to look, you can find spots that make this form the simplest to level out of all of them. And lastly, Final Form levels up with every nobody you defeat, and since you get it right before you enter the organization's stronghold, in no time at all you'll have the form at level 7 with how many nobodies you kill here. It is entirely possible to miss out on growth abilities as a whole because you didn't level up your forms. The game tells you in the menus what the requirements to level them are, but some things you can work on as the game progresses, like Valor and Wisdom, but others it'll be helpful to look up a grinding spot, which will depend on where you are in the game, but it's worth it, especially as you get into the game's extra content, but we'll get there. Another way they balance this mechanic is punishing you for overusing some of the forms. Sometimes when tapping into a dry form, you'll turn into anti-form, which looks cool as hell. Sora has this feral energy to him, and he ditches the Keyblade entirely and relies exclusively on punches, kicks, and scratches. He even has a unique ledge hang animation, but this is supposed to be a punishment for dry form overuse, so while it may seem like this form comes with sweeping combo potential, that's not without the downsides of this form's extreme lack of defensive options. No magic so you can't heal, no items so no potions, no guard, no quick run, just you and the darkness inside your heart against the enemy, which commonly goes like this on critical. It's crazy how this is just one combat mechanic they added and it has this much depth, and there's still 2 others. One is summons, but once again I barely used any of them, but I'll give them this. They have really good uses for making some specific enemy encounters easier or grinding, like Stitch constantly refilling your mana bar, which now goes into recharge mode when you run out instead of having a set amount of chunks that you use up. The way they handled magic in this game is just genius. I can see the merit of having a segmented MP bar, but on top of this just being more unique, it adds so much more strategy in the heat of battle. Different spells consume varying levels of MP, but the spell in the menu will be in yellow text if using it will send Sora into MP recharge, which helps with deciding what spell to cast next. Maybe you want to use the defensive spell again to block and counter a foe's attack, or maybe that will cost too much MP so you opt to melt a Heartless health with fire instead to squeeze more use out of what's left of the meter. Maybe you don't think you can dodge this boss's attack pattern without taking damage, so you spend the rest of the bar to heal yourself. There's so much to consider and it makes these fights a lot more fun. A good handful of spells return from the first game, minus gravity and arrow sadly, but a few old spells got their properties changed, like Faraga for instance. Now when you cast it, the fire spins around you, which doesn't seem useful at first until you realize this can help catch Heartless that duck underground and keep enemies in place while doing good damage to them. Blizzard is your projectile magic now and still packs a punch, but the real MVP is Thunder. Tap into Wisdom, Master, or if you're really feeling destructive, Final Form, and watch enemies disintegrate with Thunder magic. It's useful at every level from Thunder to Thundaga, it just does so much damage, I love it. Magnet in comparison is a spell I don't use often, but I recognize its applications. It can gather up enemies and sometimes bosses and hold them in place for a while, and from there you can cast other magic on them or start wailing on them yourself, but personally I find it more efficient to just deal with groups of enemies by just casting spells that cover a wider area like Thunder or Fire, or I just jump in and defeat all of them with the Keyblade and call it a day. But still, I recognize Magnus' uses, just doesn't suit my playstyle. What does though? My favorite spell, Reflect. Did I say Thunder was the MVP? That was a lie. It could never touch Reflect. Reflect is a clutch demon. This spell sees Sora throwing up a shield that absorbs attacks from enemies, then dishes said damage back but even harder, and it's so satisfying. And it will save your ass once you get a feel for how it works, and it only deals more damage the further it gets upgraded as you progress through the game. Observe as bosses make the fatal flaw of attacking Sora while Reflect is active and proceed to get magical glass lodged into their body, deleting their health in seconds. I'm sure just looking at my footage paints the picture pretty well why Reflect is so goated. And as always, we got Cure, which consumes all of your MP but gives you a good amount of health in return. Thankfully, this magic tangent leads pretty well into the other new battle mechanic, Limits. These are pretty cool. If you spend your whole MP meter, you can enter a limit with your various Izzy party members across the worlds. Some are more useful than others, but they tend to deal a lot of damage and can get you out of tight spots, so for me they're worth using over summons. My favorite fan service wise is the limit with Auron and Olympus. I love Final Fantasy X, so seeing Auron do team up attacks with Sora dealing out mass destruction is super hype. Another I like is the limit with Tron. This shit just decimates enemies for no reason. You just activate it and Heartless just disappears. It's like a magic trick. Except you understand the trick is taking Heartless off the senses. Absolutely ridiculous, I love it. As always, all the abilities in your kit you're going to need to build familiarity with for the post game, in which this game pulls no punches with its extra bosses. In fact, these are the hardest yet. But before I set out to hunt them down, I did a little detour to acquire the ultimate weapon. I was fully prepared to make one of every item in the returning Moogle synthesis, but I found out you don't have to do that in this game. For one thing, the Moogle synthesis can be accessed from these Moogle shops that are everywhere, so you don't have to return to a specific world to synthesize things. On top of that, you can make generic things like potions, ethers, and low-level armors anytime, but to get higher rarity items you need its recipe, which can be found in chests throughout the game. To get the ultimate weapon, all you need to do is find its recipe and it will appear in the synthesis menu. All that's left now is to find the materials to craft it, which while easier than the first game, is still an involved process that mainly boils down to finding the 7 Orichalcum Pluses, which half of them can be found in chests and like 3 involve doing other in-game tasks like clearing the Winnie the Pooh and Atlantica worlds. It still has that quality I like that by inherently going for this, you will get stronger. The Winnie the Pooh world here is a minigame compilation that's super fun and you get lots of useful items too, but you gotta find the scattered pages to access it, which if you're keeping an eye out and opening all the chests you find, you'll get them, it's only a matter of time. Atlantica. This is another minigame world where they retell the Little Mermaid movie through a rhythm game. Look, I've played plenty of rhythm games. I love Osu, DDR, Project Diva, Tekken no Tatsujin, you name it. I even fuck with that rhythm minigame in Splatoon 2. This shit right here is probably the worst rhythm minigame I've played. Is it soul-suckingly awful? No. But what rhythm game isn't tied to the rhythm? Answer me that. This shit just boils down to waiting to press a button at the right time to not fail while characters sing, and you have to do this for that Orichalcum Plus with the ultimate weapon, and there aren't any chests, so you're not passively getting stronger either, and, yes there's more, you can't even complete the world all in one go. It'll boot you out until you have a specific spell or spell level. Why? And once you finally acquire it, then you can complete the rest of the world. This world sucks for multiple reasons for me, not even just because it's a bad rhythm minigame. It offers nothing else besides the necessary piece for the ultimate weapon. Regardless, I did say earlier you don't have to craft every item to get the ultimate weapon, but you do need to gather one of every material in the game to get the last bonus Orichalcum Plus, which isn't a tall ask. You don't need multiple of each item, just one, and if you're playing on critical mode like I am, then the game showers you in lucky abilities, increasing the odds of item drops, so by the time I started going for the ultimate weapon, I only needed to collect 12 or so items, which wasn't all bad. Now the ultimate weapon is mine, and the ability it gives you is super helpful, reducing the amount of time the MP bar takes to refill even further. Every Keyblade now has its own ability tied to it, so even that is an improvement over the first game, as now no Keyblade is inherently outright superior over another, it's all about preference. But the ultimate Keyblade does hit very fucking hard with amazing magical ability, making it one of the best. With that being said, it's time to talk about the extra bosses, something this game is known for. I went this whole video without mentioning reaction commands, and that's because I wanted to speak on it while addressing the boss fights. I adore this game's gameplay for all the cool balancing and system mechanics it has, but one thing that elevates it even higher are the fucking reaction commands. This game has a sense of style that I fuck with so heavy. Sometimes when just fighting an enemy or a boss, a green triangle will appear and pressing it will have sort of do some cool action that turns the tide of battle. The opening battle with Roxas introduces this concept to you, but the one that let me know when I was a kid that this game was something special was the one in Beast Ballroom while fighting the Heartless boss, where Sora grabs his chandelier and spins it wildly to impale the Heartless, stunning him so he can wail on him with more Keyblade swings. That shit is awesome! And there's so many more, from the stare down in the Pirate of the Caribbean world to just bouncing these spike Heartless over and over, or entering a duel with the Samurai Nobodies, or any other reaction commands in the extra boss fights. The first one I fought was Sephiroth and Hollow Bastion. In that reaction command, you have a split second to perform at the start of the fight, where Sephiroth zips towards you in a blink of an eye, leaving Sora to parry the 30 sword swings he did in an instant. It's so sick. And the rest of the fight only gets better from there. Kingdom Hearts 2 has a lot of abilities you can choose from that allow you to retaliate from a knockdown or successful block. I think the first game had one or two like that, but they weren't nearly as useful as they were here. Breaking Sephiroth's barrage of attacks with a reprisal of your own to start your own combo is endlessly satisfying. But that Heartless Angel attack can be tricky to deal with and gets on my nerves at times, but I managed to defeat him on my first attempt, which was satisfying. For the first extra boss, he was an excellent first impression. But to get to the rest, we gotta go through the Cavern of Remembrance. This is the best area in the game design-wise. And as much as I love the gameplay in this game, the map design has taken a step back in comparison to how it was in KH1. There is barely anything in the way of platforming or using these movement abilities to scale an area unless you're looking for these puzzle pieces. Then you need your growth abilities for that, but this is more so to collect an item, not because you need it to progress. World's looking pretty flat, but the Cavern of Remembrance takes full advantage of all your movement abilities and constructs an area that's super satisfying to navigate. You're double jumping over shit, gliding through corridors, and quick running under narrow passageways, and it all feels so natural. To make the whole game like this, they'd have to rework the way you obtain your growth abilities, but I think the end result would be worth it if we got map design like this, as good as this game is. Though I got beef with this hallway right here. I fucking hate these encounters. There's so many enemies per wave in these fights leading up to the last room, and I deadass was stuck at the very last one for over an hour. It was crazy. I left the whole world just to go grind so that I could actually clear this shit without dying to the Cube Nobody, whose attacks act independently of him, which is annoying. But doing all this grants access to the Data Org fights, which are rematches with all the Org members you fought in the story, in addition to the ones who were defeated by Sora and Riku and Rechain. But those members' fights you have to complete their Absent Silhouette battles first to unlock, which are just easier versions of their data battles. Each member here has unique patterns you have to learn in order to succeed, but once you do, these fights are hands down some of the most fun you will have with this game's combat mechanics. Fights like Zaldin's aren't really much to write home about, except make me realize that I'm a liar, and this is the second use I have for Magnet Magic outside of Magnet Burst, because the second half of this fight borderline fucking requires it. But the ones like Luxor with his neat time mechanic that makes you play minigames mid-fight with the command menu to place him more and more at a disadvantage, or Demix pushing you to make clever use of your drive forms and the fact that activating them restores your MP bar, giving you more magic to work with to deal with his water clones, or Marluxia's boss fight, where it's not the fact that he deals a lot of damage to you, but the fact that just how many times you can get hit is directly tied to your character's level, and its attack patterns are just sporadic and tricky, but allow you to do some of the sickest reaction commands in the game if they're blocked. There's something good in all of these fights, but it's still supposed to be a challenge of everything you know. And I was on the hardest difficulty in the game, so there were a lot of devs trying to figure these guys out, and even more to actually execute what they're asking of me. But I love a good challenge, and while I had taken these guys out on my PlayStation saves already, I knew I didn't understand the attack patterns as well as I could have to be able to better take advantage of the openings they give me. So that was my goal during this playthrough for the video, to understand the patterns of all these guys, and it was really fun, and I came out being able to beat any of these Org members' asses on Critical, with Roxas, Xemnas, Luxor, and Marluxia being my favorites. They all have such fun patterns to learn and reaction commands that are sick as fuck to see. Again, taking Roxas' Keyblades to whoop his ass is gold, and Xemnas' Light Show that Sora and Riku parry every shot of, while the game asks you to match their counters for, is iconic. and that's without me even mentioning the stores in this stare down on the memory skyscraper. Peak. Although I will say, I highly recommend you equip Second Chance and Once More onto Sora before you even tackle any of these fights. One makes it to where you can survive a combo as long as you have 1 HP remaining, and the other one makes it to where even if a strong attack were to land on you, it won't kill you as long as you have more than 2 HP. Absolute godsends when going after bosses like this. Defeating all these guys nets you a crown for bragging rights and some stat boost upgrades. The crown you can actually unlock 2 more color variations of, and one of them is unlocked through satisfying the Mushroom Organization. Something I opted not to do simply because I didn't feel like it. I usually do out of obligation, but the Mushroom Org side quest boils down to basically equipping the right setup abilities on Sora to be able to complete the challenges the mushrooms ask of you, eventually earning an item for satisfying all 13 of them in addition to a crown. The other crown you can get that I always do is to defeat the final secret boss. This guy is nuts. Lingering Will is a no-holds-bar fight against this living suit of armor. It doesn't talk much, but the few words it says shows it means business and is filled with anger. And he has a fucking Keyblade that can transform into a plethora of wild shit, from a bike to a whip to a fucking nuke and a bow and arrow. This guy is fucking aggressive, and I love it. I hop on KH2 every now and again just to fight this guy. His patterns are just so satisfying to overcome, and his light arrow move, where he locks you in place and causes your command menu to quickly rotate where the escape command is, was such a fun attack to overcome, along with his super long DM. DM standing for desperation move. All of these boss fights have one, and it's typically some long destructive attack that has a lot of things to dodge. Lingering Wills is this gauntlet of Keyblade swings followed up by a homing attack into him teleporting towards you, and if your back isn't facing a wall, he can teleport behind you and hit Sora into a combo, but if you know what you're doing, you can get a consistent combo opportunity from defending against his DM, and it's super satisfying to get right. Although it's very easy to loop his DM because he does it over and over again once he does it the first time. I fought this dude with the Kingdom Key, that's how much I fight this boss. Beyond him, there isn't much else to do for the postgame besides filling out Jiminy's journal, which is going around every world and completing every minigame, collecting every chest, and talking to every character if you're into that sort of thing. The secret ending is of course some sick shit as well. You get to see the Lingering Will armor and 2 other characters we don't know yet, fighting another armor guy and a bald old guy. He beats the shit out of them and even breaks one of their friends' helmets, showing that he looks identical to Roxas, and he gets frozen solid and thrown off a cliff only to barely get saved. The bald guy then summons Kingdom Hearts in the sky, and that's where the ending concludes. I know, this video was a lot, but I love Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix. I can yap about this game all day. I mean, just look at the video link. This game is so much fun, whether it be casually on standard difficulty or chipping away at a challenge run where the game lets you turn off the ability to gain experience, keeping you stuck at level 1, and yet everything is still perfectly beatable. God, this game is just so well designed. And if you ever get bored, you can set so many restrictions on yourself to spice up your playthrough. Level 1, critical mode, Kingdom Key only, no magic, no blocking, no armors, no items, you name it. You can do it, and it gives the game so much more replay value, and while I've never played it, I hear there's a lot of fun to be had in the KH2 randomizer. Maybe I should give that a try one day. But with all that being said, I think that's enough of me rambling about KH2 for today. In any case, as always, if you've made it this far in the video, I hope you all have a wonderful day or evening, and peace. I probably already put it down below in the pinned comment, but if you made it this far and haven't read that, yeah, I was recently involved in an accident, so been pretty occupied the last couple days or weeks or whatever the fuck. Everyone's okay, so that's fine, but yeah, life has been all over the goddamn place in the last fucking whatever. You could tell by my voice, the fucking shit's been all over the place. Fucking car accident, this, that, whatever. But regardless, with that being said, I do want to pivot a bit. I won't be finishing the rest of the KH series at this moment. I might do it, pick it back up this year. I might still like do it like sometime near the end or some shit like that. But for right now, I do want to do something else at this moment. You can hear it in my voice. Yeah, but if you had a good day or evening or whatever, I hope you have a damn good one, or whatever the fuck they say. I don't know. Peace, y'all. Peace. Fuck.